So, there was some concern, would he resort to violence, to settle a score. I remember there was an incident where Corporal Kirchner had wrestled for us after he left the WWF, and and he was with us for a couple of months, and guy kind of got over initially, but then he was falling victim to that lifestyle. He was on a lot of pills and uppers and downers, and he just couldn't escape that lifestyle, and he became a liability to us. And we saw some of his antics in the bars and nightclubs. I saw him get into an altercation with several patrons and then bartenders that he'd gotten into a fight with, and very out of control. Someone that was completely kind of lost his mind. And there was an incident in a hotel room with him and Johnny Smith, and Johnny was very close to Dynamite. Dynamite almost considered him like a younger brother. He had also been trained by Ted Betley, and Dynamite had taken Johnny under his wing a lot, and they were quite close friends. And Johnny was working for Stampede Promotion at this time as well, and there was an incident in a hotel room. I think Kirchner had been drinking a lot, and he had a revolver, and he put it in Johnny Smith's mouth. And I don't know, if they were playing some kind of Russian roulette or something, but he, obviously had psychologically scared Johnny, to the point where he put this gun in his face and in his mouth. Never pulled it or anything, but it was an act of intimidation, and it was meant to kind of scare Johnny. And I don't know if there are any other wrestlers that witnessed it or saw it, but I think Johnny was pretty shaken up by it, and it gave us a lot of concerns about Kirchner and what he was capable of, and he had also had relapses from the Vietnam War, and could be very high-strung, and maybe that's why he had lost his position earlier with the WWF. But Dynamite heard about this anyway. Dynamite was working for the WWF, and he came back. Dynamite seldom came to our shows, once he was working for WWF. I don't think he really wanted to show up any of our wrestlers, and appear at our shows and kind of upstage any of them. But he was so outraged about what Kirchner had done with Johnny, a few days earlier. And he happened to be home for a couple of days before he was going back on the road, and he showed up in the dressing room that night, and he had a gun himself, and I don't think he was afraid to use it on Kirchner if he saw him. Kirchner, as it turned out, never even showed up. He had fled town. The police were looking for him. They had several warrants, I guess, out for his arrest because of his behavior at the hotel he was staying at, and then he'd had problems in Montana and BC with the hotels and bars he was staying at, and he basically just kind of fled, and he didn't show up that night. Maybe he had gotten tipped that Dynamite was going to be there waiting for him that night, and that's why he didn't show up. I don't know. But I think if they had both been in the dressing room that night, there could have been a very, tragic outcome with violence used. So, at times, I think if Dynamite was pushed to it, he wouldn't hesitate maybe to use violence or to hit somebody, or if necessary, especially if he had been drinking or under the influence of drugs, maybe, using a weapon on somebody. But, fortunately, I never saw that happen.